Today's star is me, the bride, so the wheelchair woman should just go home. But since your husband is a handsome guy, he can stay."
The wheelchair woman refers to me, the groom's sister. "Sure, you're the star bride. But with that one deadly comment, you're going to lose your spot in the limelight. You can't take back what you said. It's too late now, sister-in-law. I'm Sarah, 32 years old. I had a car accident in high school, leaving me paralyzed from the waist down. Since then, I've been in a wheelchair. Even so, I don't just stay cooped up at home. I go out alone wherever I want. The reason I'm always so positive is because of the people who support me. Thanks to my older brother, Ryan, who's 5 years older, and my childhood friend, Kevin. Going out in a wheelchair is even more fun when Kevin is with me. Kevin and I were married 4 years ago, and we've been happily living ever since. I was hit by a speeding car behind the high school. While waiting for Kevin. No matter how you look at it, Kevin isn't to blame, yet he seems to have decided to stay by my side for life. Now my brother has some great news, looking excited.
"Sarah, I'm finally getting married."
He's had terrible luck with women until now. Honestly, it's a bit awkward for me to say this, but he looks good and seems attractive at first glance. However, he's too nice and easily deceived, and while he's had a few relationships, he's often been cheated on and left. It's hard to believe the day has finally come for him to get married. Really? That's awesome, Ryan.
Thanks.
What's she like? She's not the kind of person who would cheat on you, right? I asked jokingly. Then my brother smiled wryly and said,
"Don't bring that up. I'm in a good mood about getting married right now."
Sorry. It's just that you've always had bad luck with women. So, what's your destined partner like?
Her name's Laura, and she loves cute things and is a clean freak. I want you and Kevin to meet her soon, okay?
Of course. My husband and I were set to meet my brother and his fiancée, Laura, before the wedding. The place was a stylish Italian restaurant, which was apparently Laura's favorite. On the appointed day, while my husband and I were already seated at the table waiting, my brother and Laura arrived about 30 minutes late.
Sorry we're late. Laura couldn't decide on her dress.
My brother apologized to us. Next to him stood a beautiful woman with long hair styled forwardly, wearing a delicate pink dress.
This is my fiancée, Laura. Laura, this is my sister Sarah and her husband, Kevin.
My brother introduced us. Nice to meet you, Laura. I'm Sarah. I followed my brother's lead and introduced myself. Then Laura looked at me, and her expression twisted. She seemed confused.
"Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Laura. Your sister is in a wheelchair?"
Yeah, didn't I mention it?
"I think I heard she had an accident in the past, but since I heard she was married, I thought she was just a normal person."
Laura said, looking closely at me. Normal person. Treating someone as not normal on a first meeting. That comment stuck with me, but I figured some people might be surprised. I decided to let it slide. "Oh, but I can live a normal life, so don't worry about it," I said, but Laura quickly looked away from me. Her gaze landed on my husband, Kevin, who was sitting across from me.
Are you Sarah's husband?
Yes, I'm Kevin. Nice to meet you.
Kevin, huh? Wow, you're super handsome. I'm surprised.
She immediately used a friendly tone with him. She directed a completely different smile at Kevin than she did at me. Wait, sure, Kevin has always been the most handsome guy in class, but aren't you my brother's fiancé? What's with that attitude? I felt a bit suspicious about Laura. After that, we listened to how my brother and Laura met while having dinner. Believe it or not, they met through a dating app. They matched based on hobbies and preferences and started dating after meeting in person. Before long, the conversation shifted to Laura and Kevin. Laura seemed really interested in Kevin, asking all sorts of questions.
By the way, Kevin, you're really handsome. You could be on TV or model or something.
That's a bit much, my husband said with a wry smile.
Really? You were pretty popular in school, right? You must have a lot of experience with women. I mean, it seems like people wouldn't leave you alone.
Come on, I'm sitting right next to him as his wife. Then she went so far as to say,
Actually, Kevin, you look a lot like my ex. That's why I'm so curious about you.
I was truly shocked. Looking over at my husband, I could see he was at a loss for words. As for my brother, he replied casually.
Oh, really? That's surprising.
He seemed completely unaware that his fiancée was showing interest in my husband. I could see why he hadn't had lasting relationships before, but would it be different this time? I felt pretty anxious about my brother marrying her. The dinner was filled with an awkward atmosphere, but we managed to finish it, and my husband and I went home. I decided to share my suspicions about Laura with my husband. Hey, do you think it's okay for my brother and Laura to get married? It felt like Laura was flirting with you a bit.
Do you still agree?
My husband looked anxious, just like I did. But Ryan doesn't seem to mind, and that might just be Laura's normal way of interacting with people. Even if we're worried, it's ultimately up to them to decide to get married. As long as my brother is happy, that's what matters. Plus, Laura and I just met. Maybe we can gradually understand each other better. I pushed down my anxious feelings and decided to think that way. However, a few days later, I heard a shocking truth from my husband. He ran into Laura at the station on his way home from work, and she approached him. My husband mentioned his workplace briefly during the dinner party. He said Laura was at the nearest station to his office. If they just happened to run into each other, that would be one thing, but I'm pretty sure Laura works along a completely different train line. Yet, when my husband headed to the station, Laura was there waiting for him. Since that day, Laura's stalking didn't stop. In fact, she was even there waiting for him late at night when he was working overtime. This is definitely not normal behavior. Shouldn't we talk to the police department about this? However, she is my brother's fiancée, and she approaches him with a vibe of wow, what a coincidence. There's no such thing as daily coincidences, but I can't just report someone who might become family without a valid reason. My husband and I decided that he would meet me at the station after work. On the day we were supposed to meet, I arrived a bit early at the platform where my husband usually meets Laura. And there she was, waiting. Kevin wasn't there yet, so Laura had no reason to wait. I decided to approach her. From my wheelchair, I had to look up at her. Oh, Laura, what a coincidence. Such a surprise. Oh, Sarah, what are you doing here? Laura jumped a bit at my voice. I'm here to meet my husband for dinner, and I'm waiting for him. How about you? Are you waiting for someone? I thought your workplace was quite far from here. I pretended not to know what had been going on.
I just happened to have some business over here. But really, dinner with Kevin. In that outfit?
Huh? Laura said this as if looking down on me. Well, it's true that I'm not dressed up today. I'm in a simple shirt and skirt, not exactly fancy. I didn't go all out on makeup either, but what does she mean by that outfit? Oh, well, I just figured we'd go for a casual dinner, so I'm dressed normally. After 4 years of marriage, this is how it is. I stopped myself from adding that we're a happy couple.
That's shocking. Just because you've been married for 4 years doesn't mean you can neglect your appearance. I mean, are you really Kevin's wife? I can't believe it.
Laura suddenly switched gears and said this. Wait, what? I was taken aback by her change in attitude. She is friendly in front of my brother and husband, but her attitude towards me is so harsh.
Honestly, I don't understand how you, being in a wheelchair, could marry Kevin. He's so handsome. If I had met him first, it would have been me marrying him. God is so cruel.
What is she talking about? Even though she has my brother as a fiancé, Laura is off in her own world, fuming over her wild fantasies. I was completely taken aback and couldn't say anything. Just then, my husband arrived.
Sarah, sorry to keep you waiting. Oh, and Laura, good evening.
Oh, Kevin. Good evening. It's nice to see you again. At this rate, it feels like we're dating with how often we keep running into each other.
She said to my husband with a big smile. Does she want to steal my husband away? I can't help but think that.
Well, we have plans, so we've got to go.
That's too bad. I wanted to chat more. But if you have a promise, I guess there's nothing I can do.
She replied, looking at me with resentment. As we turned to leave, I could feel Laura's lingering gaze on our backs. After we got home, my husband immediately asked me how it went.
So, how was it? You talked to Laura, right?
I shared with him everything she had said to me.
Well, she's quite a character.
Do you think Ryan will be okay? I was starting to worry about him. He's had such terrible luck with women in the past, so I really hope this time it works out.
Well, I think it's just us who find her difficult, and if he's okay with her, then I guess that's what matters.
My husband said, That's true? There must be some closeness between my brother and Laura that we don't know about, and my brother surely understands her personality. Despite our inner worries, before we knew it, it was the day of my brother's wedding. Of course, we as family were invited to the wedding. Our names were on the guest list, but when we arrived at the venue, the staff stopped us. We're the groom's sister and her husband. Our names are on the guest list, right?
Yes, you're definitely invited. But could you please wait a moment? I'm asked to have the lady called in when the sister and her husband arrived.
the staff said, looking confused. So, we waited at the entrance when Laura, wearing a pure white wedding dress and holding her dress up, approached us. Her long hair was delicately styled, her makeup was flawless, and she looked like a princess. Laura, congratulations. You look beautiful, I said, but then came the completely outrageous words from this princess, looking me up and down.
Of course, I'm the star of the show today. But still, even though you're all dressed up, it's just that, with you being in a wheelchair.
Huh?
Kevin is really handsome, though. He looks great in formal wear. It's amazing to have such a good-looking brother. Let's take pictures together later.
Laura spoke to my husband with a smile completely different from the one she had for me. My husband replied,
Sure, let's take a couple's photo later.
But Laura said nonchalantly,
Really? I wanted to take a picture with just the two of us. A two-shot would look like a wedding photo, right?
Wait, aren't you about to have a wedding? Is that something you should be saying? And yet, Laura, by the way, can't we not go into the venue now?
Kevin is, of course, welcome. But, Sarah, you should go home.
Excuse me, I'll have you know this is also my brother's wedding. It would be strange for me not to attend as his sister, right? Besides, do you have any right to say something like that to me? I said, my irritation starting to show. Since my voice was a bit loud, people at the entrance who were checking in paused to look over. But it seemed Laura was oblivious to the surroundings as she continued to hurl heartless words at me.
What are you talking about? Today is a wedding. The star of the wedding is the bride, which means I'm the main event, and I'm going to make this the most outstanding reception. Having someone in a wheelchair just stands out in a bad way, and there's no benefit to that. Besides, having someone like that around will ruin the appearance. Just go home. But Kevin can stay.
Laura said this with such confidence, as if she thought my husband would just go along with it. But that was never going to happen. Moreover,
What do you mean, Laura? How can you say that Sarah in a wheelchair ruins the appearance? You know Sarah is in a wheelchair, right?
my brother had appeared behind Laura, having heard the commotion. He looked shocked. I felt guilty for not having warned him about Laura's true nature. Laura flinched at my brother's voice and quickly turned around with a forced smile.
No, I was just joking. Don't take it seriously.
She tried to brush it off. Kevin said, stepping in.
No, that's not really a joke. I can tolerate insults towards my wife. Plus, it's inappropriate to keep showing up to meet someone else's husband right before a wedding.
Laura fell silent. My brother, with a pale face, said,
Did you really do that? Last week, you canceled our date, saying you had to work, and then you went to meet Kevin.
Apparently, Laura had prioritized stalking my husband over a date with her fiancé. Upon hearing this, my brother lowered his gaze for a moment, but then raised his head to look directly at Laura. Laura, caught under my brother's serious gaze, briefly averted her eyes. All right, I understand. Then I'll do as the star says, he said, turning to the guests who had already entered the venue.
Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for showing such disgraceful behavior despite coming from far away. The bride, who is the star of the show, asked my sister to leave, so I, the groom, will be leaving as well. Therefore, today's wedding reception will be cancelled.
Wait a minute, Ryan.
Laura's face turned pale, and she began to panic. And with my brother's words as a catalyst, the guests already present started to stand up. One by one, they began to leave. It seemed the commotion at the reception had spread to the guests inside the venue. Although there were supposed to be around 300 guests invited, only a handful remained in the venue. Laura noticed this and started to freak out.
Wait, everyone. What the groom just said was a little joke. Don't take it seriously. The reception is about to start. Come on, Ryan, stop everyone. Why would they leave all at once with one word like that joke? With this, I won't be able to have my wedding,
she exclaimed while grabbing my brother's arm. I felt I could no longer hold back and decided to enlighten Laura. Laura, do you know who the guests are today?
I think it's mostly Ryan's relatives, coworkers, and friends.
Actually, today's guest list totals around 300 people from both families, and there's a reason for that. My family has a long-standing tradition of having large weddings, and this reception included all relatives. That number is roughly 100 people. So, since a third of the guests are my relatives, there's no way they would be in a good mood about insulting me as the sister. Of course, same with Ryan. Even if it was a joke, it's too malicious. Would you want someone like that in your family? Besides, do you even understand Ryan's work?
He's the sales department manager, right?
Do you know what company he works for? It's a company that makes care equipment, like wheelchairs and nursing beds. Oh, right. So, Laura still seemed unaware of the gravity of her actions. Well, let me enlighten her. The guests related to Ryan's work are people involved in care equipment, trying to support those who need care. Insulting me, someone in a wheelchair, in front of them only reveals your own prejudice. Of course, Ryan's friends know him well. He actually started working at his current company because of me. He wanted to be involved in care equipment to help me live more comfortably. His friends all know that, so if someone with a prejudice against people with disabilities is marrying him, they won't feel like celebrating. As the department manager, my brother had many superiors and subordinates, and there were about 70 guests related to his work and their partners. While he might not be the most perceptive when it comes to women, my brother is calm when it comes to decisions, and once he makes up his mind, he follows through. This is why he has earned trust in his work and is progressing well in his career. Moreover, due to his kind nature, he has a wide circle of friends, and about 70 family members of those friends had been invited. In other words, by saying what she did, Laura not only angered my brother, but also started a conflict with around 240 guests. This is why, following my brother's declaration, the guests he had invited began to leave one after another. However, there was one thing I didn't understand. It was about Laura's friends leaving. I noticed beautiful women around Laura, who were the same age, leaving one by one. Laura seemed to be desperately trying to hold on to her own friends.
Hey, Mary, why are you leaving? I invited you.
Laura called out to one of her friends who was trying to leave. Mary, who was part of a group about to head out, turned around and said,
You told us that we could catch a good-looking guy at this wedding, and now everyone's leaving. If there's no one to catch, there's no point in being here. Let's go to a mixer instead.
With that, she left. It was true that Laura's guests were all beautiful women, but it seemed there was a reason for that. Most of Laura's guests weren't there to celebrate. They were hoping to find their own potential marriage partners. In other words, it appeared she didn't have any true friends. Well, that's probably due to her personality. Laura's face was now beyond pale. It was white. But then she seemed to have an idea and hurried over to my brother.
Hey, Ryan, reconsider. What I said earlier was just a joke. Today's already ruined, but let's reschedule and have a proper wedding next time.
She stubbornly tried to dismiss it as a joke. Hearing this, my brother said,
Even if it was just a joke, to say something like that to my sister in a wheelchair is shocking. And to be following Kevin around.
Ryan, don't believe what Kevin says. He invited me out on a date, and after that, I just told him to go home because Sarah was acting weird and suspecting me of cheating. I didn't do anything wrong.
Wow, I'm kind of impressed that she could come up with such a lie at this point. But there's no way someone who lies like this can make my brother happy. I decided it was time to bring out my secret weapon. It was a small act of revenge against Laura, who had made fun of me all this time. Hey Ryan, just so you know, here's a recording of the conversation I had with Laura when she was stalking Kevin at the station. I handed him a small voice recorder. Actually, when we met at the station the other day, I thought it might be useful, so I prepared a recorder and recorded our conversation. It captured her insulting me and expressing her desire to marry my husband as evidence. Upon hearing this, my brother sighed and looked at Laura with disdain. Nevertheless,
Ryan, that's been edited. Please believe me.
Laura still wasn't giving up. She sat down right next to my brother, grabbed his arm, and looked up at him with tears welling in her eyes. This was probably one of her signature moves that had worked on countless men before. But my brother shook off her grasp and said calmly,
I really can't marry you.
Huh? Why? Don't you trust me, Ryan? Don't believe that sister and her husband.
No, I do trust them. The truth is, Kevin would never cheat on you. He's been my best friend since childhood.
Seriously, why would you trust your sister's husband like that? Maybe he's just being forced to say that.
Laura's demeanor shifted from submissive to confrontational, pressing my brother. However,
Oh, that's not going to happen.
my brother replied confidently. Both my husband and I echoed, that's not happening.
Why?
Because he's been my best friend since we were kids. I've known him for a long time, and Kevin has always been devoted to Sarah. So there's absolutely no way he would cheat with you.
Wow, it's kind of embarrassing to hear that from someone else.
My husband said, slightly blushing. I felt a bit bashful too.
I trust these two. I must have misunderstood you all along. I wouldn't want to marry a woman who harbors prejudices. So I can't marry you.
With that, Laura exclaimed and started to cry loudly without caring about her surroundings.
Oh my gosh, I finally got a handsome husband and a brother to brag about. And now this. My dream reverse harem is ruined.
It seemed Laura's true goal was to surround herself with good-looking guys. What does she even think marriage is? Her once beautiful makeup was now ruined by tears, Her eyes were dark, and her lipstick had smeared, making her mouth look unusually red and distorted. She looked like something out of a horror movie. A young relative, witnessing this, exclaimed,
"Mom, look! There's a ghost from that movie we saw the other day."
The mother quickly replied,
"Hey, don't look. Come here, we're going home."
"But I've never seen a real ghost before. This is amazing."
The boy's high-pitched voice likely reached everyone still in the room. For a moment, there was silence, then everyone began to shake with suppressed laughter as they started to prepare to leave. Of course, this reaction was not lost on Laura.
The star of the show is a ghost now. No way.
She muttered in a low voice, then began to cry even louder. To summarize, Laura not only got rejected in front of everyone, but she was also called a ghost and became the laughingstock. It's quite ridiculous that the one who judges others based on looks is now being laughed at for her own appearance. Laura seemed to be in such shock from crying that she just sat there, unable to move. Eventually, she was dragged back to the waiting room by her relatives and the staff.
Well, I guess we should head home too.
My brother said, and the three of us left together. Fortunately, since my brother and Laura had not registered their marriage yet, his marital status wouldn't be marked by a divorce. Since then, Laura has contacted my brother, claiming that her shameful behavior had become known to her relatives and friends and demanded that he take responsibility. Apparently, she said,
Because of you all, I'm now called a ghost among my relatives. What are you going to do about it?
What is she talking about? This is all her own doing. Of course, my brother flatly rejected her nonsense. At first, Laura seemed unwilling to give up, but when she mentioned involving a lawyer, she suddenly stopped contacting him. After all, she had canceled her date with her fiancé to stalk my husband, so she must have known she was in the wrong. After that, I heard through the grapevine that Laura, feeling lonely about not getting married, became immersed in host clubs. She reportedly spent large amounts of money every night on her favorite host, going into debt and ultimately getting cut off by her family. Now, it seems she's working in a nightclub to pay off her debts. She was once like a princess when I first met her. To go from that to being called a ghost and falling so far is truly pitiful. As for my brother, I thought he would be down in the dumps after everything, but surprisingly, he wasn't. A company associate who attended my brother's wedding learned about the cancellation and offered to introduce him to a better wife, his business partner's daughter. This daughter turned out to have a kind personality, completely opposite to Laura's, and I felt like we'd get along well. They have just started dating, and while there hasn't been any talk of marriage yet, she has already become friendly with my husband and me, going on trips together as a group of 4. I believe this woman could truly make my brother happy. When that time comes, I will genuinely celebrate my brother's marriage.